بسم الله بسم الله الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. First and foremost, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We continue with the book Kitab Ut-Tawheed by Mujaddid Shaykhana Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah ta'ala, and we are upon the chapter Bab Ma Ja'a fi Nushrah. We went through it briefly last week, but we're going to go through it in a bit more detail today, inshallah. So firstly, let's ask the question, what we went through last week, which was sihr, which was magic, which were those people who want to tell you about the unseen. So we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is alimul ghaib, the one who knows the unseen, has knowledge of the unseen. But then there will be some people who come and they will say, in the future, this is going to happen to you, that is going to happen to you, etc. So now what is the ruling? For example, what is the ruling if I was to go and visit these people and ask them, tell me about my future? They tell me and I believe in it. What is that ruling? Committed kufr after the fall of Islam. Salah is not accepted. So that person is out of the fold of Islam. But the general thing is, for example, if somebody goes to these people out of curiosity, out of not, let's say, does not even believe in them, right? Doesn't believe in them. He just goes there, he listens to them. And the other thing is, he believes in them, but he doesn't know that they are using the jinn. This is when his salah will not be accepted for 40 days. But he has to not know that they are using the jinn. If he knows that they are using the jinn to get the information, passing it on, then he has committed kufr because he accepted that there is something else other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala providing information. Okay? He has to believe in that jinn giving the person information. If, for example, I go to Anas and he tells me something about the future, I don't know what he is using, etc. Me believing in him is where my salah is not accepted. But him using the jinn accepted, he's going to kufr, but I have not fallen to kufr until I know that what he is doing, how he is doing it, what things he is doing, and I accept it and I go and believe in it. Then I have also fallen into it. So now, somebody uses sihr. He uses different form of sihr, meaning black magic, using people's hair to send the jinns to go and affect a person, using potions, using charms, using certain type of magic words, and then a person is possessed. So now that person who is possessed, there has to be a cure for him. The Prophet ﷺ has told us that for every illness there is a cure. Every illness has a cure, and it is our duty to find that cure. That cure could be in the Quran, Shari'ah. It could be a form of a dua. It could be something what we know as tajarba, which you mentioned, for example, medicine, which has been trialed and trialed and used, and we know that it has a means of cure to it. So these are the means that we can take. So now when somebody is possessed with black magic, etc., what can one do? And this is what this chapter is talking about. What are the remedies to remove witchcraft? Or what can one do to remove witchcraft? Ruqya, what we mentioned before, and this nushra, the difference in it generally, because here the Prophet ﷺ, in the first portion of it, where he mentions, where an Jabir anna Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam su'ila ani nushra faqala hiya min amal shaitan, rawahu Ahmad. That the Prophet ﷺ was questioned regarding this nushra, this remedy, this cure, and he said straight, it is from the works of shaitan. It is from the teachings of shaitan. It is from the doing of shaitan. So this type of remedy is not allowed. The Prophet ﷺ negated it. But we're going to look, and some of the tabi'een, they accepted this and they allowed for it. So we're going to see the difference. But generally, nushra, the way we take it and understand it, is removing witchcraft, removing magic with a form of magic. That could be through, for example, the assistance of the jinn, the shayateen, through ta'weez that people use, charms and knots that they tie and they'll blow on them or put them on the people. These are ways of using the jinn, the shayateen, to remove the magic that was put on by the shayateen as well. This one is not allowed. Also through potions and drugs, for example, they will give a medicine, a form of medicine that they may blow on by using or saying certain jinn words or using jinn names or drugs and spells which will affect the person that is possessed. These are all that were used in the time of Jahiliyyah, in the time of pre-ignorance before Islam. And they came into Islam. All these ways and these forms. And we know that it is from the amal of shaitan because in the ayah, وَاتَّبَعُوا مَا تَتْلُو الشَّيَاطِينُ عَلَى مُلْكِ سُلَيْمَانَ وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانُ وَلَكِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ كَفَرُوا يُعَلِّمُونَ النَّاسَ السِّحْرَ. And they followed instead what the devils had recited during the reign of Suleiman. It was not Suleiman who disbelieved, but the devils disbelieved, teaching people magic. So in the time of Sulaiman alayhi salam, the people, they were teaching the jinns, they were teaching the people magic. And the people started to falling for that magic. I started following that magic. So this is why it is saying it is from the works of shaitan, the sihr. Because the jinns were teaching sihr, magic. And the people started to take it on board and also start to learn it. And then start to use it and also start to teach it. وقال سئل أحمد عن أنها فقال ابن مسعود يكره هذا كله. That when Imam Ahmad was asked about it and Nushra, he replied, Ibn Mas'ud disliked all of this. Ibn Mas'ud disliked all types of remedies, all types of these cures. كانوا يكرهون التمائم والرقى والنشرة. That he, Ibn Mas'ud, he disliked talismans. You know the tama'im that people put around, the ta'weez that we already mentioned. He forbade even ruqya to an extent. And the spells nushra. Ibn Mas'ud was against all of this. Remember once we said the 70,000 who are going to enter into Jannah without any hisab, without any questioning, without any... One of those was the one who does not go seeking ruqya. The one who doesn't go out and say, please do ruqya upon me. He is one of those that will be entered into Jannah without any questioning. Why? Because he puts his tawakkul, his reliance only in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And because of this reliance only in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he shows patience throughout these difficult times. And this is what allows him to enter to Jannah without any questioning. So here Ibn Mas'ud, he is against all of these. He's not saying it's haram, but he's saying he disliked any form of these remedies. And this, we say, is a extreme view. And the general meaning of this athar is that when Imam Ahmad was asked about An-Nushra, he quoted the opinion of Ibn Mas'ud, which was that he considered it forbidden. This is as per the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that he says An-Nushra is from the amal, the works of shaitan. So this is why he said An-Nushra is forbidden and is not allowed. وفي البخاري أن قتادة قلت لابن مسيب رجل به الطب ويؤخذ عن امرأته أن يحل عنه أو ينشر قال لا بأس به إنما يريدون به لإصلاح فأما ما ينفع فلما ينهوا عنه. Al-Bukhari reports that Al-Qatada radiyallahu anhu, I asked Ibn Musayyib, these were tabi'een. We all know what tabi'een is, yeah? It is somebody who saw a sahabi. He did not see the Messenger of Allah. He saw a sahabi and he died upon Islam, upon Iman. This is who is known as a tabi'een. And atba tabi'een is the one who saw a tabi'een and died upon Iman. A sahaba is somebody who saw the Prophet ﷺ and died as a Muslim with Iman. And this is what is known as the first three generation. And when we say Salaf, this is that three generation. The Sahaba, the Tabi'in, Atba Tabi'in. These are that golden generation that when we generally say the Salafis, we are talking about this generation and going to these people and seeing what did they say about certain situations. So now these are Tabi'in who are conversing with one another. I asked Ibn al-Musayyib, a man is under a magical spell or is unable to be intimate with his wife. Should we treat him by an-nushrah or apply some other means to cure the sorcery? Ibn al-Musayyib replied, there is no harm in it because they intend the person to get better, and that which benefits is not forbidden. So now here, this part is going against what the Prophet ﷺ said. The Prophet ﷺ said, An-Nushra min amal al-shaytan is from the doings of shaitan. But here Ibn al-Musayyib is saying, there is no harm in it. That which is benefiting you cannot be forbidden. So this we take it with some understanding. Ibn al-Qayyim, what he does is he takes into two opinions. He says the first opinion is what we mentioned, that nushra is forbidden. And which nushra is this? It is magic curing magic. Magic, using magic, potions, ta'weez, certain bracelets, tying knots upon strings, blowing onto them. Doing these type to get rid of black magic, etc., is not allowed, which is forbidden, and it is the works of Jahiliyyah. But using, for example, the Quran, reciting the Quran on somebody, reciting du'as on somebody, which we know is ruqyah. So meaning nushra, if it is used in the form of ruqyah, then it is allowed. And this is what we take from Ibn al-Musayyib here, that that type is allowed if you're using the Quran and using du'as. روي عن الحسن أنه قال لا يحل السحر إلا الساحر. It narrated Hasan al-Basri, he says that only a sorcerer can break the magic of another sorcerer. But this statement from Hasan al-Basri here is weak, da'if, it has no chain with it. But the one that is correct is سُئِلَ الْحَسَنْ عَنِ النُّشْرَةِ فَقَالَ السِّحْرِ, that he was asked regarding nushra and he said it is magic. That it is magic. So Hasan al-Basri was on the opinion that no nushra is allowed. No remedies of where you're using these certain type of things that other than ruqyah are not allowed. And then we mentioned what Ibn al-Qayyim says. So the important issues we take with this bab is the prohibition of nushrah. As per the hadith of Jabir, referred to nushrah is from the time of Jahiliyyah. It is from the works of shaitan. And the difference between the prohibited and the permissible for the removal of such problems, as we mentioned, which Ibn al-Qayyim says that the one that is allowed is using the Quran and the dua. So this is when we want to remove black magic, we all can only use the Quran and the dua, and that which is mentioned in the Sharia, and we cannot use portions or something different. For example, some people may get oil. Using oil on its own is fine, but if they start to recite something on the oil, they start to make it into a portion, or they get water but they recite something other than the Quran upon it and make it into like a remedy portion that they say is going to work, or they use strings, etc., put it around the person. As we mentioned before, in the time of Jahiliyyah, they will, for example, if somebody has a pain somewhere, they will put a string around it. They will put something around that area in hope that it's going to cure that area. This is all what you can say is form of this type of nushra, where they are using jinn or something other than the Quran and the Sunnah to get their remedies. So now we go on to the next chapter, which is Ba Ma Ja'a Fit Tatayyur. So these chapters that we are taking are all regarding, one is sihr, then we have been talking about the unseen, people trying to predict what is going to happen to someone, what may occur to them. And we mentioned this is how the jinn coming, maybe giving some information to them that is correct, but they add 99 lies to them, and they're using this information and then tell the people and the people believe in it. So now this tatayyur is another means of that. For example, tatayyur is omens, bad omens. We mentioned part of it where a ladder, for example, you walk under a ladder, it is bad omen. A black cat, bad omen. Friday the 13th, bad omen. Certain things that you will hear, certain things you will see that people said this is a bad omen. Maybe you are going to do something, but somebody tells you it is bad luck if you do it on this day, or if you do it this way, or it may be a person, or it may be a place. And then you change your mind and you do not do it. You do this, what happens? You have moved away your tawakkul, your trust in Allah, your trust that you had in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have moved it away, and you have now believed in this bad omen, this superstition that people have put in front of you. So now the relevance of the chapter to the book. Since believing in omens is a form of shirk which violates the principle of pure Tawheed, or at least impairs its perfection, the author dedicates this chapter to warn against such an evil practice. For example, the people of Jahiliyyah, we mentioned before, they will use birds. So what they will do is, for example, a tree. They will throw something at the tree. When the birds fly out, if the birds fly to the right, then they will be optimistic and they will look and they will say good words about what is going to happen for that day. If the birds fly to the left, then they will be pessimistic. They will feel that today is going to be a bad day for them. The act that they are going to do is going to have bad in it or bad luck in it. So they use the birds to decide whether they should do something or not do. So for example, should I go to the marketplace today? They will throw the stone at the tree. If the birds go to the right, yes, we should go. If it goes to the left, no, we should refrain because something bad may happen. Something bad may happen. So they will use these types to, and this is where bird, bird, in Arabic it is tayr. And this is where this word tayr comes from, birds. So now, at-tayr is considered as minor shirk because it impairs the perfection of Tawheed from two perspectives. One is it demonstrates a weakness in the tawakkul of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as we mentioned before, tawakkul comes under the banner of isti'ana. Remember we took the chapter, the isti'ana, putting your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you're going through difficulties, you only turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This all comes under the banner of isti'ana, when you're seeking help, protection, and tawakkul comes under there. So it's a form of ibadah. And you are now taking that away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you're putting that trust in these bad omens. And this is a form of minor shirk. Why? Because it is not legislated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that it constitutes legislating a cause which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not legislate as a legitimate cause, considering these omens as causes, asbab for determining affairs, is not something Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has legislated. So when will it become minor shirk? So question, when do you think bad omens will become minor shirk? If I was to ask you the question. See, when it's not from the Quran and the Sunnah, this is where we say minor shirk because it's not legislated. When we say it's not legislated, it's not from the Quran and Sunnah, you're using something to make your decision, right? When we always say when it is something minor shirk, we have to now take that away from Allah and put it to something else. For example, in this case, if I feel that this omen in of itself is going to bring me benefit and harm, this thing is in of itself, no outside thing, this in of itself is going to bring me benefit and harm, this is when it falls into major shirk. For example, if a person believes that these omens bring about good or cause harm within themselves and are not simply causes, then they have fallen into major shirk. This is because they believe that there is other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who can create and control the affairs. Because we always believe that the qadr is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is going to happen to you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already decreed for it. We always say when a person is born, or when the ruh is blown into the womb of the mother and the child is born, we say that his rizq is already written. He will not die until he earns exactly that amount. Yeah, his decree is already written. He will live until a certain age that has already been written for him. No omen, no superstition can change any of that. Can change any of that. So what is going to happen to you is already written. Minus shirk, we said two instances. One is when your tawakkul goes down, when your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes down and you put your trust in these things. One. And the other one is that you're legislating something other than which is legislated in the Quran and the Sunnah. وقول الله تعالى ألا إنما طائرهم عند الله ولكن أكثرهم لا يعلمون. Allah the Almighty says, indeed their misfortune is decreed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but most of them do not know. And this ayah was revealed regarding Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. Because in the time of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, they will also have this where they will say anything bad which is happening to them is because of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. And they will use Musa and say, he is the bad omen. He is the reason that negative is happening to us. And also it happened in the time of Thamud, where they also said Salih was the bad omen. Any bad that is happening to us is because of Salih. So they use people as bad omens. So it doesn't have to always be a thing. It could be a person or it could be a place. And the mushrikeen of Makkah, they also believed that the Prophet ﷺ was that bad omen and he was the reason why bad used to happen to them. And the Shaykh, he highlights here that in this ayah, it is showing that the decree is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and with no individual. No individual can decree anything for you except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills. And the general meaning of the ayah is, when afflicted with drought and famine, the people of Musa accused him and his people of being evil omens. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refutes them and confirms that whatever evil comes to them is by His will and command as a punishment for their disbelief. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also depicts them as ignorant and devoid of any contemplation. Had they pondered over what afflicted them, they would have known that Musa alayhi salatu wasalam brought nothing but goodness, success, and blessings for those who believed in him and followed this message. وقوله تعالى قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون. And he, the Almighty, said, the messengers said, your faith is with yourself. Is it because you are admonished? Rather, you are a people who transgress all bounds. And this ayah was revealed regarding the people of the town, as mentioned in Surah Yasin, where therein messengers came to them, they saw them as an evil omen and threatened to punish them. So these ayat that the Shaykh Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab is mentioning here are just in confirmation that no individual, no messenger, no person could ever be a bad omen, could ever be somebody who gives bad luck. Yeah, no person, no place, no thing. So meaning there is no such thing as bad luck. You know, generally we tend to say words, for example, you were lucky when you did this. This is pure luck. As a Muslim, we should refrain from saying these words. Why? Because by saying pure luck, we may be saying because of the time that you are living in, or the time you went to this place, this is the reason why you got what you got. It was pure luck that you arrived at this time. You understand? But as a Muslim, we should say what? Qadar Allah ma sha. That it is by the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what you got. What a fluke. In a sense, yeah. These are all terms, but yes, as we will not say it in the same meaning that one will actually believe, for example, saying, look, you are so lucky. Like some people actually believe it. For us, it's a lot of roll of the tongue. Roll of the tongue. It's like when people say, Jesus Christ. For some, it's just a roll of the tongue. They don't actually believe it. But they are words that we need to refrain our tongues from saying. Why? Because they are words that go against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are words that displease Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they are words that, if you actually believe in them, they will take you and put you into this minor shirk category. Because we say the decree is only with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no time, no place, and no individual. And the general meaning of this ayah is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refutes the false ideologies of those who renounce His messengers and accuse them of being the source of calamities. Allah affirms that the cause of these calamities is disbelief and evil deeds. And we always say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is the one that gives goodness, and He is also the one that puts people through hardships and difficulties, meaning dar. Why? Because He wants to test them to see how are they going to come out of these situations. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه أن الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا عدوى ولا طير ولا حام ولا صفر أخرجه وزاد مسلم ولا نوء ولا غولة. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he narrates that the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says there is no adwa and no tiara, meaning bad omens, and no hamma, meaning owl, and no safar, and this meaning the month of Safar. And in Sahih al-Muslim, they add extra, and no, and al-ghul. So now we're going to go into each of these one by one. So what the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam mean when he says adwa? This is them believing that a disease can be passed from one person to another person on its own accord. You know, like how we say, don't go next to that person, he can spread a disease to you. He could have a headache, he could have a certain type of illness, and you say, don't go to that person, he in of himself is going to spread a disease to you. So they had this belief that the person who is ill will make you ill. We say, because we know there are hadiths, for example, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, if there is a place and there is a plague there, meaning there is illness there, do not go to that place. Why is he telling us do not go to that place? Because you can get ill. And if you are in a place that people are ill, there is a plague, then do not leave that area and spread the disease around. So we know it can spread. But what is the difference that these people in Jahiliyyah would do? And in the time of Islam, those who understood, what is the main difference? They believed in time of pre-ignorance that it is going to spread in and of its own accord. We believe that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who is the one that spreads the disease, spreads the illnesses from person to person. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you know when we say terms, for example, because of you I fell ill. Because of you I fell ill. This is a term that makes you fall into the people of Jahiliyyah. And this is against what the Prophet ﷺ taught us. We say as a Muslim that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put me through this illness. We can say, yes, because I was around you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put me through this illness. But you could not say, because of you, I have fallen ill. Because of you. And then we have tirah, which is what we just mentioned, omens and superstitions. Because a person wants to do something, but a omen or a superstition comes in his way and takes over him, and he stops doing that action which he was doing. And this shows what? That his iman has reduced. This reduces a person's iman when he starts to believe these omens and superstitions, and it takes him away from the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or something that he was going to do, and he stopped in his track because of these omens and superstitions. And then Hama. Hama is an owl. And it says that if an owl sat on your house, on your home, then it shows that today you're going to have bad luck. Today your day is not going to go good. And it means a destruction for a person. And then we have Safar. So the difference of opinion, for example, they say that in the month of Safar, do not travel. Do not go anywhere. Do not leave your homes. Why? It is a month of bad luck. Month of where things happen, bad things happen. So do not travel this month. Stay at home. So here now what they're doing, a time. A certain time, meaning Safar, a certain time, that month is a bad month. It is a bad time for people to do anything. And then inside Muslim, we have the words no. And this is stars. When they rise, when they set, their movement. And they said this has an impact upon the earth. What occurs upon the earth? The stars they have an impact upon it. Directly have an impact upon it. And then you have ghul. And this is the jinn taking form as ghosts. And maybe they will put fire in front of you. Maybe they'll put something which is scary in front of you. And this is what to put fear in you, to divert you from the path that you're going towards. So they use ghosts, the jinn turn into these ghostly type figures just to scare you, to put fear in you and divert your track. Because all these are what forms of diverting your track from the action that you are going to do. Maybe it could be something pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Maybe it could be something general that you are doing in your daily life, but they are forms of taking you away from that and moving you to a different direction. And these are ghosts, and we know that when we see these type of situations, we recite the Quran, we make dua, we recite Ayatul Kursi, and we read as much Quran as we can, and we say the adhan also. We say the adhan. This helps us in these situations that we are in, and will help us get us out of these situations. So this hadith, the general meaning is that the Prophet ﷺ invalidated the false beliefs of the pagans, Arabs, whereby they took birds, months, stars, demons, and evil spirits as bad omens, which brought about misfortune and calamity. They also believed that diseases could infect people without divine intervention from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet ﷺ warded off superstitions and called people to remain steadfast upon Tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and relying upon Him alone. And the Prophet ﷺ invalidated seeking evil omens and negated their effect. This invalidation clearly demonstrates its falsehood and its inability to have any effect on any matters. ولهما عن أنس رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا عدوى ولا طير ويعجبني الفعل قالوا وما الفعل قال الكلمة الطيبة. Anas reports that the Messenger ﷺ said there is no adwa and no tiyara, but al-fa'l pleases me. So the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned those points, meaning the bad omens, etc. None of these please me except al-fa'l. So the Sahabis, they ask, what is this al-fa'l? And he says, it is a good word, kalimatul tayyib. It is saying a good word. So for example, when you go and visit a sick person, you don't start saying negative words to him. For example, what if you die? What's going to happen? You are such in such a bad state, you may be dead soon. No, say good words to the person. That, oh Allah, give this person shifa. Oh Allah, you are as-salam. You are the one who is you, or you who is healthy in the presence of someone who is sick, to give them optimism that they will be cured with the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, giving them this optimism, giving them this good word. This is what the Prophet ﷺ, he's saying he likes. And the difference between al-fa'al and al-tiyara can be outlined as follows. Al-fa'al always agreeable and pleasing in nature, whereas al-tiyara is always disagreeable and displeasing in nature. Al-fa'al entails putting trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and having good thoughts of Him. A believer is commanded to trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and have good thoughts of Him. At-tiyara indicates mistrust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and having evil thoughts of Him. A believer is forbidden from mistrusting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and having evil thoughts of Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the general meaning of this is that the Prophet ﷺ invalidates the false belief of the people of Jahiliyyah, whereby they believed that diseases could infect people without the permission of Allah, and that certain things represented evil omens which brought about misfortune and bad luck. But the Prophet ﷺ excludes optimism and encourages words as being the same as evil omens by stating that he liked them and was pleased with them. This is because they have positive effect on the people. So saying good things to people that have a positive effect, this is what the Prophet ﷺ liked, and he told us to say and do with people. And Uqba ibn Amr narrates, at-tiyara, bad omens, was once mentioned before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's messenger, and he said the best form of it is al-fa'l, optimism. It does not prevent a Muslim from his objective. Whenever any of you sees something he dislikes, he should say, O Allah, none but you brings good things. None but you prevents evil things. There is no power, no strength except in you. So this means what? When we see something bad, when we see something that we do not like and we dislike, we say this, Allahumma la ya'ti bil hasanati illa anta wa la yadfa'u as-sayyi'at illa anta wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa bika. We say this when we see negative or we see bad things that we want people to stay away from, or we want that thing to be removed. This is what we should say. This form of dua we can say. And al-fa'al causes a person to proceed with a matter based on encouragement while being optimistic and having tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And at-tiyara causes a person to proceed with a matter while relying on illegitimate asbab, meaning illegitimate means, and having no or weak tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in this chapter, the general understanding we take from this chapter is bad omens, superstitions, something that takes you away from the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is minor shirk when the cause is not from the Quran and the Sunnah, is not from the Sharia. However, if one believes that that omen or that superstition in of itself is the cause for my destruction, or is the cause for my badness, or is the cause for the difficult path that I'm going down, then it is major shirk. And the Prophet ﷺ has likened that we say good words to one another. When we see something that we dislike, we say the words La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, and that we basically stay away from any type of omens and superstitions, and we remind people to say good words to one another, especially when we see the sick people or we see people going through difficult periods. We don't put them down. but rather we say good words to them so they be optimistic about the future and be happy and look forward to the future. Okay, so I think we'll leave it there for today, inshallah, and we'll carry on with the chapter next lesson, which is Ba Ma Ja'a Fit Tanjim, which is astrology, which is regarding the stars. Wa ma alayna illa al balagul mubin.